same kind of problems as well. But that's the thing. The other thing is that how can research be kind of use centric, use inspired. So that's a grand challenge focus. So that's some of the things that are attracting these institutions around the world. And we have new two other universities that we're going to add soon from UK and Singapore as well. So the way that the partnerships work is along these 5 dimensions. One, as Pallavi mentioned, there's already people who are helping us in curriculum development, and in these interdisciplinary majors that you saw, they are somewhat unique, and so you need different perspectives to come together, not only from science, engineering, mathematics, computer science, but also from the humanities and social sciences. So how do we do it in a way that it's a rich experience, for students, given the 4 years that they have in the undergraduate program? So that's one area that partnerships is going on. The other thing we hope is to have faculty exchange soon. Most of the universities have programs of this type where our faculty probably will be able to go for like mini sabbaticals. That's one of the first things we're starting with, probably every year even. And then work at the frontiers of research with their collaborators in these universities. And as we establish our own research labs and programs, faculty from these universities will also be able to visit us and conduct research on Indian soil. The third thing is about development and training, because engineering education is actually a very established field with for example, Purdue University that's represented here has about 25 faculty just in the engineering education department alone, with dozens of PhD students, for example. So there's a lot of learning going on about how students learn, how to do interdisciplinary research, how to evaluate what you're teaching, etc. So that we want to translate to our faculty, and so that would be a great third way of partnering. The fourth one is about research programs, which is somewhat related to faculty exchange as well. So we have mentioned that already. The last one, the fifth one, is about exchange. In the initial stages, it will be, of course, students from Plaksha going on a year abroad or a semester abroad kind of programs, which they can transfer credit back to Plaksha for the graduation. But again, as I said, in the future, in the few years, as we get our juniors and seniors on board, there are programs, study abroad programs that are in the US and other institutions where tens of students can come and spend a semester or a summer at Plaksha, working with Plaksha students. So that's something that we hope to incorporate very soon. So we, as I mentioned in the previous 5 areas, these are just some photos just to show that we have been at this for a long time. I've been with Plaksha almost 1.5 years, and the effort started even about a year or two before that even. So this, kind of designing this university and the thought process is going on for quite some time. And so I think by the time we are ready to open our doors, we're going to have a great program ready to go from day one. So it shows workshops at MIT. That's the first photo, and then the second one is a virtual one that we just completed in December 2020 at Purdue University.
Thank you, Rama. And if I just add to this picture that you see on the left side, this is where some of the majors that you see today, which are being offered, this is the room where they were being conceptualized. So this is where the discussion on this had started, and it took a long time to actually get to the fore that you see today, more than a year. But this is where some of it got started, and the people here are anywhere from Ravi here is from Harvard Medical School, Arvind here is from Purdue, Shankar Shastri here is from Berkeley, Sanjay here is from MIT, Hanuman here is from Northeastern. So it was a very widespread group of people who really come together to think about what degrees of the future could look like. And this is where we actually got into developing curriculum. So as we go forward, we thought we can do a bit of a deep dive into a couple of partnerships for you to get a sense of what they actually look like. Starting with Purdue, and I'd request George if he can take this section over.
Thank you, Pallavi, and good evening to everybody in India. And my name is George Chiu, and I wanted to kind of discuss a little bit about our partnership with Plaksha, and I want to thank Plaksha University to provide us with this opportunity to work with you. It is a very exciting opportunity for us to reimagine higher education, especially engineering education, as Purdue has a long history of training and educating engineers for the United States as well as around the world, and so we're very excited to have this opportunity to do that. So with the connection started very early. If you go back, keep going, Bobby, I'm sorry. So we actually have a couple of examples here. The curriculum was started by looking at engineering education. I think most of you probably will see that the traditional engineering education, after about a couple of hundred years, is very sequential, right? You have you take mathematics, you take mechanics, you take chemistry. You start with chemistry 101, the first course, the second course, the third course. And so it's not until you're probably in your junior year, the third year or the fourth year, you start to have the opportunity to put all the things you learned for the past 3 years to put together to see how they're useful. That has its benefit, but we feel that it's not a good way to educate, to train new engineers for the new world, where you have grand challenges that's not just addressed by one single discipline, but by all disciplines. So we're rethinking of a holistic engineering education curriculum that's concurrent, that it's context-driven or application-driven, that is hand-on, and that's iterative. And so when Plaksha came to us, presented this opportunity to reshape, Purdue, as part of, we kind of jumped on it because we think this is a unique opportunity for us to rethink engineering education for the next generations of engineers. And so we started in January 2020 that we had the first curriculum workshop that we worked on 2 disciplines. And then in December 2020, with the additional of the other 2 disciplines, we reimagined again, and we actually practice what we tried to preach, right? We do a concurrent redesign. It's context-driven, and it's hands-on. We have faculties from around the world, actually, literally, and then to rethink and do an iterative design of the curriculum that we're very proud. It will be a very unique opportunity and provide unique experience for students. And also, we have encouraged our faculties to participate in the TLF programs. Up to today, I think we have 4 faculty from Purdue presented at TLF, and 3 in person, and 1, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I think did it virtually. And there's many students that are currently actually at Purdue, and as well as in Plaksha, working with Purdue faculty. So we're really excited to see this germination of this partnerships, and we're looking forward to working with faculties and students from Plaksha, and we're looking forward to have our faculty and students visit Plaksha in the coming years. Next, please. So some of the collaboration we have are research projects. Initially, these are projects that the TLS fellows continue with their Purdue faculties. Either they do it remotely, or they have the opportunity to come on campus working with our faculties and our students. The other thing is Purdue's Engineering Education School. We are the first in the world to treat engineering education as a discipline. And we want to investigate the pedagogy and method of engineering education from primary schools to universities and colleges. And we have Purdue faculties also participate in Plaksha's faculty workshop to discuss how to best teach and convey engineering disciplines and concepts through a different approach, through a hands-on teaming and approach, as well as learning how to convey and assess student accomplishments in hybrid education. So there's not just on the research and education side, we also are very involved, right, in working with Plaksha faculties to make sure that the curriculum that we put together, the faculties have buy-ins and are able, right, to present and work with students to achieve their aspirational goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George. So as George was talking about some students who have actually gone over to Purdue to work on research projects, Ankit is one of those students. He is at Purdue as we speak. So just to give you a sense of the kind of projects that students work on, I'd request Ankit if he can talk a little bit about the work that he's currently doing.
Thank you very much, Pallavi. So, good evening to everyone. So I was part of Plaksha Tech Leaders Fellowship. So this is a unique program. I will talk about a little bit about TLF. So it has a diverse set of students from various backgrounds, just not from the engineering. We have people from economics background as well. And second important thing, this program is very interesting and exciting for me is its curriculum is also diverse. It's include leadership, then entrepreneurship, communication, and tech part. As a part of my fellowship, I required to do a capstone project, and I was fortunate enough that I got my research intern at Purdue University under the supervision of Professor Dharmendra Saraswat in the Agriculture and Biological Engineering department. So this is one of my projects I'm currently working on. So there is a crop grown in sub-Saharan African region called cassava. It is livelihood of 80% households in African continent, but it is attacked by 5 major diseases. And they cause immense loss of yield and productivity and suffers the livelihood of farmers. So currently, we are using deep learning methods, which is a subset of machine learning that uses images to classify diseases so that this can be used in real time and provide actionable recommendations to farmers. Once we identify these diseases using images, we can provide suggestions and recommendations to farmers to mitigate these diseases. So there are various challenges in agri-tech. So many of you may want to go into agri-tech. So I want to talk about some challenges which are limiting the research in agriculture sector. These include lack of infrastructure. So we do not have data collection methods and other strategies. Then if we have equipments, but these are currently costly, like sensors to measure soil properties and sensors to measure environmental factors, these are costly. They are available, but they are costly. Then the other thing is this agriculture data is stimulus data. It is not directly, let's say you have taken a data measurement from the field, but it depends on different factors like environmental conditions and soil properties. So the data collected at a particular time will be different than collected at another time. So that's why this is a stimulus data. And it depends on environmental factors and soil properties. Then once you collect the data, you have to annotate it so that your models can use it. And the last thing is lack of awareness and trust among farmers. So farmers are not well equipped to understand these technologies. So we have to create awareness among them so that they can utilize these tools and skills of machine learning to help them overcome the disease and weeds in their farms. So this is the typical cycle of a machine learning project. We have agriculture scientists, so we have enough domain knowledge. we have data, but the problem lies is that we currently have very less number of machine learning tools that are currently used in real time to provide recommendations to farmers. So we want more and more people to help to come into this sector and help farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ankit. That was a wonderful project. And I think we're really glad that Ankit, who came in with an interest in agriculture and machine learning, was able to pursue exactly that through the research project that he's doing. And that is really the intent. Everybody may come in with very diverse interests. And we hope that through our various partner networks and otherwise, students get an opportunity to work on the problems that they are truly passionate about. So this was an example of the partnership with Purdue, which has been a really, really important and very valuable partnership for Plaksha since its early days. Another partnership that we've had from the early days is with UC Berkeley. This picture on the right is, this is Dr. Shankar Shastri on the left, who was formerly the Dean of Engineering at UC Berkeley. This is me, this is Vineet Gupta, who is the founder and trustee at Plaksha. And we visited Shankar for the first time in 2017. And the partnership has grown leaps and bounds from there. Dr. Shankar Shastri is on our advisory board. And 2 years later, in 2019, we signed a formal partnership with Berkeley. So on the right here, you see Dr. Ikhlaq Sidhu, who leads Sutarja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology at UC Berkeley, which is really a center which brings entrepreneurship and technology together. These are typically things which in a university get treated as different departments, but it's really operating at that intersection. The partnership is broad-based, as it is with Purdue, which includes all the things that Rama had spoken about earlier: joint research, joint academic programs, faculty exchange, student exchange, and so on. One of the key areas of the partnership that was kicked off early was the Tech Leaders Fellowship that Ankit is a part of, which was really co-designed, co-developed with Berkeley. It took 4 to 5 trips back and forth to actually brainstorm and create the entire concept, curriculum, etc. And eventually, Ikhlaq here is the co-chair of the program. And the certificate that's handed out at the end of the program is co-signed by Plaksha and the center at Berkeley. These are some pictures of various faculty from Berkeley who have come and taught in person at the TLF, and you would expect something similar at the undergraduate program. This is Ikhlaq here. This is Dr. James Shanahan from Berkeley. This is David Law, who comes in on the entrepreneurship side. This is Alex, who comes in on the data science side. And this is Dr. Pradeep Chibber, who comes in on the political science side. And this is Dr. Shankar Shastri, who I spoke about earlier. All of these people have been here in person to take classes, to take sessions, and so on. Rama, if I can invite you to talk a little bit about how we are thinking about research at Plaksha, the broad vision for it, and how that then translates into undergraduate education.
You know, I was trying to remember how I got into even engineering or this endeavor way back. I don't want to date myself saying which year, but I said, okay, my teachers and parents said, you're good at science and math, so engineering would be a path for you. So that kind of stuff. But I think, as I've interacted with students over 30 years at Arizona State University, more and more students are coming in with saying, I want to make the world a better place. I want to change the world even if it's possible. And then other people, in fact, my own daughter tells me, Dad, you and your generation and even before them have created all these problems for the world, and we will be the ones who will solve it. So that kind of stuff. So I think the mindset of students coming into engineering is completely different now, and the universities are not changing as fast. That's what I see. And when I was traveling on behalf of the national academies, I found that was the case around the world. So what we want to inculcate in our students is not only the technical excellence and depth that one needs to be an engineer, but also the research mindset that has to be there if we're solving real world problems, entrepreneurial mindset that was already mentioned by Pallavi in the other program as well. Also a kind of a global mindset nowadays, So engineering is not just going to be solving your own problems in your own backyard, but it's applicable to the whole world. And the last one is kind of engineers are here to serve society. That kind of a social consciousness mindset, what we call it. So how do we build all these things through our programs at Plaksha is what we'll talk about in the next couple of slides. If you go to the next one, Pallavi. So these two frameworks that have been used widely to kind of inform the way we design education and also provide research opportunities. One of them you might have heard of is the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN. It was signed in 2015 and adopted by nearly 200 countries, including, of course, India. And so you can see there are 17 goals over there, and many of them are broad problems, but engineering is an enabler to solve this challenge, along with social sciences and humanities and so on. The second one that you see there is the grand challenges for engineering for the 21st century. That is just said in just in 15 words or so, is to use engineering to make the world more sustainable, more healthy, more safe and secure, and more joyful. So just 4 kind of big ideas you can think of, and engineering is actually possible to do that. And these 14 specific challenges are examples of some of those. It doesn't mean that these are the only ones, they're the exemplars as well. So these 2 frameworks are what we will use in Plaksha to actually not only deliver education, but also give research opportunities through our research centers that we are establishing at Plaksha, and also through these partnerships with, in the case of Grand Challenges for Engineering, there's over 100 universities around the world that have adopted this as the framework. And so we will have partnerships with, ability to have partnerships with many of them. And so Sustainable Development Goals is something that is less used in engineering, but I think we feel that it's one of the most useful frameworks because it brings in very clearly the social and the humanities and also policy aspects of engineering. If you can go to the next slide, Pallavi. Yeah. So from what I talked before in the past 2 slides, and this is a kind of a matrix that represents the way we are thinking about how to kind of infuse research experiences right from year 1, first semester as students come in. As George was mentioning, it's not that you need to take a lot of courses under your belt and have them under your belt before you kind of address some of these problems or know to be part of this addressing the solutions to these problems. You can start from year 1 itself. That's our approach. That is kind of a problem-based learning approach that you do things with the big picture first, and then you kind of get deep dive as you go along the 4 years. So the 4 majors are already talked about before, and these centers are the Human and Planetary Health is a very broad institute kind of thing. What you're thinking about, under which we have water security, Center for Water Security, Center for Clean Energy, and also for digital agriculture. Some of them were already talked about here. So they come under the broad umbrella of Human and Planetary Health. Manufacturing is 4.0 is what they call it. So right now you have the physical system and the cyber are kind of merging, and so I think that's kind of the reason why smart manufacturing is there. And also we're learning a lot about how living systems or nature is using manufacturing and designing materials and systems. So we can also incorporate learnings from nature as well. Cybersecurity is generally thought of as a bug in your computer, things like that. But I think more and more you have seen examples of cybersecurity for critical infrastructure, which is both the electric grid, or you've been seeing a lot of that happening around the world, and very, very recently as well with the dark net. And so that's something that we want to have a broad offering of research in cybersecurity to cover that. A future of mobility is very critical for like a smart city. What does a smart city mean? One element of that would be mobility. And so all of these things are things that are going to be huge opportunities, not only challenges, but also huge opportunities for our engineering students and researchers. The last one is education itself. can be reimagined in ways that we can bring personalized learning. And one example of that is, I could say, is how can you use maybe intelligent tutors through AI to kind of individually coach students who are doing coding or other kinds of exams without actually giving them the answers. You want to guide them in the right way, but you can do that individually through some smart systems using AI. So these are some of the examples of research centers that students will be part of right from the first semester. And maybe the next slide will give you a little bit about how we're designing the first 3 semesters at least, which will be what we envision this is to be a common experience for all Plaksha students. And I know that some of the questions are coming in about, if I'm interested in computer science, but I want to do something else, is it possible, etc. So I think this gives you an idea that, everybody will have this background for first 3 semesters. And then even if you have come in with an interest of one major or the other, you will have a flavor of everything before you can make an informed decision at the end of 3 semesters. So that's the reason why we have also designed it this way. And you see kind of different colored boxes here. Before I come to the Innovation Lab Grandstand Studio, I just want to quickly go through this. So, engineering for the past, I don't know, certainly the 20th century has been basically, application of science and math into addressing, solving problems. So physics, chemistry, mathematics were kind of the underpinnings of engineering. But lately, and towards the end of the 20th century, and certainly now, computer science is a kind of a foundational subject. So that's why the darker gray here of our computational thinking is there. And then not only that, now even more recently, biology itself is informing engineering, and vice versa. Engineering solving big problems in biology. So I think that is another foundational subject. So not only physics, chemistry, mathematics, but also computer science and biology. So that's the reason we have all this. And then we have also the more colored boxes in the yellow and orange, which are coming from the social sciences, humanities, ethics, and so on. So all of the students will have that. Now, coming to the grand challenges. Oh, sorry, am I taking too long, Pallavi? So coming to the Grand Challenge Innovation Studio, if I could go to that. Yeah, this is where students will engage in projects right from the semester 1 itself. And I think that's the kind of the unique aspect of this. This is going to run through all 8 semesters, and then culminating perhaps in what we call the capstone projects, the last 7th and 8th semesters. And so we just one example of how this can be done from semester 1 is shown in the next slide. If I think that's what the next slide is, no? From the local to the global, is that? Yeah, here. So one can start with projects right on your campus, because the campus itself is as mentioned here, is kind of a living, learning, and also doing laboratory. So that's what we want you to look at, whether it is, how is a campus net zero, or how can buildings be more intelligently designed, or how can you collect data on solar panels on the roofs, etc. So all of those examples can be implemented right in the campus. And then as the progression goes, as shown here, you go global by the time you have more expertise and more experiences under your belt. So that's pretty much the way that we want to incorporate research and as learning by doing kind of methodology. Thanks, Pallavi.
Thank you so much, Rama. George, if you want to add anything to this Innovation Lab and Grand Challenge Studio thread, since you were very closely involved in the conceptualization of this, and it also draws from some similar ideas at Purdue, if you just want to add anything.
Sure. Yeah. So I want to add that one of the major key differences or differentiating factors, and people have been talking about that in the Q&A I see with the Plaksha curriculum, is this Innovation Lab and Grand Challenge Studio. We call it ILGC. It is a concept, a context that kind of, if you think about it, a string of pearls, right? This is a string that kind of put all the pearls together to make a necklace, right? And you, as Plaksha students, the approach is you get into the Innovation Lab and Grand Challenge Studio in day 1. You participate in a research project, a topic, or a problem, or an issue from day 1. you don't have to wait until you have taken certain amount of courses, because we feel that understanding of where the problem coming from is really the motivation for you to learn. It's not just to learn calculus, right, and then differential equation, and then you start to learn mechanics, but you really don't know how mechanics or differential equation really applies to the problem. But what we want to do is in day one, you try to understand what is the issue an engineer as you are going to address to make people's lives better. And by understanding that, we bring in the information, the contents, as you try to solve this problem at a different scale, right? Dr. Rama mentioned that you start from local to communities, to countries, to global. Learning is the same thing. You start with looking at the problem and find maybe we call it zeroth order approach to this problem. And when you work on that, you start to learn more complex issues, and then you learn more in details. And that's when we start to put in more details into your each individual discipline. And that's where the 3 first we call freshman years comes in, is as you learn more about the problem, as you search for solutions, you start to see the complexity. And as you see the complexity, this is where information and education comes in. This is where you actually can go talk to your professors and faculty to say, I see this in my solution, how do I address that, right? And this is where you learn more new things as you explore. So it's really not a push of information. It's actually a combination of you as students to try to draw information from the faculty, as well as faculty provide that information to you. So it's a symbiotic relationship. And I think that's really the very unique aspect of Plaksha's curriculum, is you are part of the curriculum, right? You also have a decision, you also have a contribution to see what you learn and how you learn. And the university is there to help you, to make you a better engineers at the end of this process. So I think that's really the Innovation Lab and Grand Challenge Studio it's something that Purdue has done for almost 20 years. We have a program called EPICS, Engineering Projects and Community Service, which is we're trying to bring community projects to and ask our engineering students to try to address them, as well as vertically integrated projects where you have researchers, graduate students, undergraduate students working together to solve a problem. This is really simulating how real-world solutions are being put together. It's not just one person, it's a team. And how do you work in a team, in a team member, and considering not just the technical solution, but also the social impact, right? And so this is really, I think it's a gem, if you would, of the Plaksha education, that you are part of a team. And you have also the freedom to choose, right? You don't have to kind of get stuck into one. You have the chances of trying to find different projects as you move along, and you insert yourself into those projects based on what year you're in, and then you can participate in that. So we feel that this is a much more flexible structure. You actually get to choose what you want to learn and what you want to decide to do. Coming back to Dr. Rama's point, when I was in undergraduate, I just said, okay, I think I want to do this, right? So in year one, and then once I get into that discipline department, I'm stuck, right? If I found later on I have to do this, I have to change and have to waste, I have to add more years into my study. In Plaksha, you have that flexibility in the first year and a half to explore, to really understand what the discipline and how that discipline fits into the real world problem, and then make a decision of where do you want to focus and focus your energy. So I think that's really something that we feel over at Purdue over the past 20 years. We feel the student really thrive in this environment, that they have some, they're a partner, right? They're talking about partnership. It's not just a partnership with the university, it's a partnership between the university and students. So we feel that this curriculum is really a very flexible in a way that the student is part of the learning process.
Thank you so much, George. So just picking up a couple of questions at this point. One is from Divya, that will there be avenues for internships? Rama, if you'd want to take that.
Yeah, so I think there's also another question about, will students have opportunity to be associated with the research centers? So I think I could combine the two. I think internships are both within the university and research centers in the faculty research labs, for example, or the research centers we have established, but also with industry. About, 100% of the Plaksha founders are industry titles. So in that sense, we'll have a great connection to industry already. So that's one thing. And in international, we already mentioned that there is this study abroad programs that would be available, where you can not only do research at the partner universities, but also probably take courses there, which you can use towards your graduation. So there are multiple avenues for internships that is available, will be available at Plaksha.
Thank you, Rama. There's also another question from Arnav on how significant research is in today's world, considering that not a lot of people know about research initiatives, and how sustainable is it, given that India spends less on research compared to various other countries around the world?
I mean, I guess I'll take a stab at it, not having been in India for almost 40 years, but it's critical, especially for developing countries such as India, to have developing your own research, capabilities. In fact, even the very first institute in India that was established, I think first was the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science, and the second was Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. So they were the premise on which they were founded was that India needs to have its own capacity at frontiers of science and engineering research. So I think that continues on, and you have the IITs and the NITs as well. So I think research is also much more funded than what people are aware of in many agencies in the government as well. Only one thing I would say, perhaps different from some of the Western examples, would be that industry research is probably just picking up. I think that's something that I think will be growing significantly in the future. There's IT industry perhaps is spending some, but I think we need to have more from the manufacturing and other kind of industries spending more on research. So I think that will also pick up. I think the future looks bright, even if some of these industry are not really spending cutting edge research right now. But I think government is significantly increased from what I can understand.
Thank you, Rama. There's also that.
So can I take a stab at this a little bit differently? I think one of the questions about the talk about is funding and why is it important. So if you look at the development of the COVID vaccine, right? The fact that we can have a vaccine with less than a year when we first decipher the DNA of the vaccine is because of research. And you should think whether research is important. It is very important for what's coming in the future. Now, why is it important for India? It's absolutely important for India. India has, I'm not Indian, but India has a very diverse cultural, both and also diverse in terms of societal needs, right? And the issues that face the Indian communities is going to be different than other parts of the world. And those issues need to be solved, and solution comes from research. So people start to think research as this high-end research, like going to the moon, going to the moon. No, research is not, right? Ankit, as an example, research has very strong local context because the motivation of trying to figure something out is coming from your personal impact. And I think that's really, really important for a country like India trying to kind of develop itself and advance. Really, there's many issues that needs to be done. And this is why I think Plaksha's approach is really important. We try to bring research not at the research center level, it's really at the community and the society level, right? And so for people to look at issues and trying to find solution for those issues. It's grand challenges, but it has to have local solution.
Thank you, Rama. Thank you, George. There's one other question which has come multiple times around whether there are opportunities for high school students to shadow or support professors in some of these in some of these domains. So whoever has asked this question, I'd welcome you to just write into us and express interest if you have in working with any specific faculty, and we can figure out if we can do something with that. We have a Young Tech Scholars program, which is a high school program. But since you're referring to specific research here, please feel free to write in, and we'll see if we can help you with that. And transitioning from that into talking about some of our faculty at Plaksha right now, Rama, since you played a very instrumental role in recruiting the people here, if you'd like to just briefly talk about this.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, Parvi. Yeah, as you can imagine, Plaksha is a university that's yet to open its doors. Of course, we have the TLF program, but formally admitting undergraduates. So attracting world-class faculty is a challenge, and I was actually pleasantly surprised how some of these people that you see here on this slide are all excited about being part of Plaksha even before Plaksha is campus is ready and the buildings people are moving in, and that is because of these some of the things that George mentioned is kind of this opportunity to impact society in ways that what you do research is not just sitting on a shelf collecting dust or a few people reading your papers, etc., but it's actually transforming society and around you. And some of these big challenges also offer big opportunities, not only for research, but also for entrepreneurial ventures as well. So I was actually very, very surprised and pleasantly that these people are very excited about Plaksha. And that is one of the things that you see here. Not only we have young people who are wanting to move back to India to, begin their careers and build their, future in India. And one of the questions was about, why not IIT, why Plaksha? So they had the same decision to make. Why not go join a well-established institutions like IIT and where there are IAC or other NITs, etc. But why Plaksha? So they made the choice, and they could have gotten jobs pretty much in any university around the world, is what I believe. So these are young people coming from Oxford, from Purdue, from Cambridge and MIT, from Singapore, NTU, and you see a whole bunch of universities there. And we've also been able to attract a few senior faculty members who have always wanted to be in a place which is, really meeting the needs for the future of education and research in India. And so we have people from IITs, IASC, who have come to accept full-time positions at Plaksha. So I think overall we have had a very wonderful mixture of both young as well as experienced people who are going to join Plaksha by July 1, and then we will be ready to roll, when the semester starts as soon as it can, given the situation in India with the health, with the COVID situation. But we are about goal is to have about 15 to 20 faculty, and we are seriously in last minute negotiations with 3 faculty right now to join not only the engineering programs but also the data science, economics, business as well. So we'll have a full slate of founding faculty. They're coming not only because of, as I told you, to reimagine education research, but also help building an institution. Institution building is a very, very exciting opportunity. It comes once in a lifetime, and so they're jumping at this opportunity. So that's a little bit about the faculty. To have okay.
Yeah, thank you, Rama. So moving on to how this translates into some career opportunities, and there have been some questions around this as well regarding placements and so on. While this session was focused on research and higher studies, so these are some examples of students who from our other program have gone on for either research projects or higher studies at various institutions in the US, in Singapore, in Europe, in India, and so on. There are some examples here on the left. And 24% of that class actually went on to work on entrepreneurial ventures of their own. And an example that's being shown here, this is Ramya and Lakshya, who are pitching their startup to Tim Draper here. They're co-founders of a startup called StimVeda, which is in non-invasive brain stimulation, and it's already started to get recognized among the top healthcare startups to watch out for. Similarly, there are various other teams of this kind, and many of them are mentored as part of the Plaksha Entrepreneurs Support Program. The mentors whom they're assigned to are all among the founding group of Plaksha. As we mentioned, most of them come in, most of them are CEOs. A lot of them have built their own companies. Some of them are unicorns already. And these people come in to personally mentor students who are starting out on their entrepreneurial journey. And some of these startups actually result from the kind of research that they were doing before. So these are some examples on the research and entrepreneurial paths, which are sort of like the paths less taken, but equally on the placements and corporate job side, that, needless to say, is given that Plaksha is being started by all industry leaders, that is something that is extremely strong at Plaksha, in fact. And from this class, to give an example, students have gone on to work at the Boston Consulting Group, Microsoft, ATM, Cisco, various AI companies, and a lot of other very sought-after companies. Ankit here is welcome to add to anything from his batchmates experience. So placements, of course, is something that there is absolutely no need for students at Plaksha to be concerned about. There would be enough and more opportunities. If there are any further questions on the site, we'd love to take that. Meantime, since we just have a couple of minutes left, I wanted to move on to just the last one or two questions. One of them, very importantly, is around facilities. So how would we be able to provide these facilities from year one in September 2021? So Rama, if you just want to talk about a couple of the initial labs and what is planned ahead, that would be very helpful.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, that reimagining education is a very key part for us. So one of the first centers we'll establish is a collaborative for innovations in education. So that's number one. The other centers that are already in stages of forming our Center for Clean Energy, which we are working with corporate partners and also with government agencies. That will be the second one that's going to come on. Center for Border Security has received some funding already to start with. There's another one on financial engineering that's called FinHub. So that's also has already received initial funding. So multiple of these centers already have starting funding, even before we start.
You can also speak about the makerspace.
Yeah, so this is a unique area in many universities in the West, and I haven't seen much. I came through the IIT system, and I visited them many times. So this is a very large space, about 8,000 square feet, 7,000, 8,000 square feet of students learning by doing. So this is what we hope to be a 24/7 kind of a space, eventually run and managed by students, with, of course, safety and other things being taken care of as well. But this is an area where you'll have laser cutters and 3D printers and electronic boards that you can build, even carpentry and other things that you'll need. So these are facilities that are I think equipment has already been ordered and will be coming in just now. And I think the pictures of the campus may be there sometime. Pallavi will show some of the areas where we will institute this. So this is something that we also will use it for the ILGC courses, as George was mentioning, as well as for engineering design. Engineering design itself as potentially a minor that we can offer for students who are interested in getting a degree in one major, but also a minor in engineering design. So this is a very unique space. As far as I know, it won't be matched by any in India for sure. What will have the facility.
Thank you so much, Rama. We're up on time. So if I can just request George to also share any closing remarks. And George, there's actually a question here on why to choose Plaksha over foreign universities. I guess this would be a bit of a conflict for you to answer. But nonetheless, if you just want to add a few words on that as part of the closing remarks, that would be helpful.
I think the closing remark is, I think there's only very, very few institutions around the world that has this unique curriculum setup as Plaksha. Is really we view it as the new engineering curriculum for the future. And I think Plaksha really has that advantage because it was built from ground up, right? We don't have the history of all the disciplines. If you think about it, it's like building up a new city, right? If you try to build the new city for the next century, do you want to build on top of Delhi, or do you want to find a place to build? Because there is so much history and things that you have to change. Whereas Plaksha, we really reimagine what higher education, engineering education needs to be. So I think that's really the unique aspect. When you make your personal choice, do you want to go to a foreign university or Plaksha? I think with the partnership, you're not losing the connection and networking that you will have with working in a foreign university, but you're at home. You're addressing the issues for India, but you also have the advantage of having with the partnership that Plaksha has with institutions around the world, you're not losing that connection and networking capabilities.
Thank you, George. That's really helpful. Rama, if you have any closing words.
I think George really hit it on the nail that, it's not either or, you can get both at Plaksha. I think that was a great point that he made. I think, for young people who are looking at engineering or, technology education, I think there is also the opportunity to get a holistic kind of education that I think only Plaksha will have. And as I mentioned, the social sciences and humanities sit in a separate box in most of the traditional universities in India, and then you have here the opportunity of integrating them in your learning experience and your courses, in your research, etc. So I think that opportunity is also very unique and very welcome for those who try to choose Plaksha. I think one of the things I'm looking for is that many of the new innovations will come from students of Plaksha in the future, not just from West or China or other places. So I think there is a lot of opportunity to have address problems and come up with solutions which are global for students at Plaksha. So I'm looking forward for that as well at Plaksha. So I hope you'll choose Plaksha, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of you there when I come there this fall.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, George, Rama, Ankit, for being here with us today. It was absolutely wonderful to have you over. It was an inconvenient time for most of you in the US, but thank you so much for making it despite that. Thank you so much for the audience for being extremely patient throughout and for wonderful questions. If there are any questions that we were unable to answer due to paucity of time, please feel free to write into us, and we'd love to answer that offline. Thank you so much, and have a very nice evening.